It's that time again. Hey guys, it's the Pink King here. Seeing as it's now been a week since Helluva Boss Season 2, Episode 10, the Halloween special, what a mouthful, I thought it was about time I made an updated tier list video on each Helluva Boss episode in Season 2. Now, to those of you who don't know, this was a tier list I had over a year ago now. Is it perfect? No, but I want to make some changes. So today we're going to be ranking each Helluva Boss Season 2 episode from worst to best. If you want to get in on the action yourself too, leave me your personal rankings for each episode of Season 2 in the comments below. I read all of your guys' comments and I might even give you guys a shout out in a future video. If this video gets 150 likes within a week, I'll read some of your comments in a video and shout you out. So, comment, like the video, and let's begin with the rankings. First we have episode 1, The Circus, and already we got a problem, because if you watch this episode on its own, it's perfectly fine, but when you put the context of Helluva Boss on it, it starts to fall apart, yeah. With it breaking canon quite a bit, and overall just coming across a bit too fanficky. The animation was good, the song at the end was legitimately great, I have to give credit. But again, this episode, the moment you put context to it, from the previous episodes, it starts to fall apart and becomes so cringy. So for The Circus, I'm gonna have to put it in mid. Not the worst, but definitely not great either. Next we have episode 2, Seeing Stars. A very strange episode to say the least, especially considering the big fallout in the finale of season 1. The gang is all together again with Stolas so casually as if nothing happened. And it just comes across as so jarring, not to mention the whole concept of this episode feels so incredibly weak, with it trying to build more on the characters' daughters with Octavia and Luna, but ultimately it just spends more time on unfunny side plots that amount to nothing meaningful and ultimately just feel unnecessary. So yeah, this episode is one I often skip on rewatches because it's pretty much nothing. Nothing happens in it, and it just feels like they were scrambling for ideas, but they couldn't figure out how to move on from the Aussie saga. This one's going in the bad tier, because it couldn't justify its own existence, really. 2 episodes in and already it's not looking good. Well, hopefully the next episode can make a comeback.
It's awful. It's all fucking awful! It's all of it, and every single one of them sucks!
Yeah, X's and Oo's is not an improvement here. Where the last episode felt like it was barely trying at all, this episode feels like it's trying way too damn hard. With the constant obnoxious sexual gags, the strange and sudden introduction of Moxie's dad, and the hellspawn that is Chaz. This episode was not good at all. The only redeeming quality is Millie, because she's the only quote-unquote normal one here. And I use quotes heavily. But yeah, the plot, these characters, and the humour all felt like just too much here. You need very clever writing if you're going to pull off these ideas well, and Helluva Boss just doesn't have that. So yeah, this is going in the awful tier. Hopefully now we can finally get some good episodes. Are you kidding me? Immediately awful. This episode was so fucking bad. The side story is completely irrelevant and factors nothing into the main story besides Blitz getting out of the way. The jokes again are atrocious. And the worst of all, they ruined Stryker. Now look, I get it. They couldn't get Norman Reedus back to voice Stryker, but at that point, why not just create an entirely new character instead of trying to rework an already established character? Not to mention the complete change to him as a character, where Stryker with Norman Reedus was very calm and calculated. He's a very tactical killer in season 1. Here, he's just another asshole with a temper. This episode is bad, and it deserves to be destroyed at once. Please, all I ask is for one good episode, just one.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we have a improvement, but not by much. First, let's start with the positives. Unhappy Campers finally put more spotlight on Millie, which is always appreciated. It also had a, for once, interesting side plot, I know, shocking, with Blitzo. Yeah, that's about it. Again, this episode's concept feels so incredibly rushed, with Moxie's sudden self-esteem issues and the creepy nature of this episode. It all just feels so cheesy and unoriginal. A solid mid-tier episode, if I've ever seen one. What's next? Please, I can't take any more. Oh, we're so back. Oops. Undoubtedly is a fantastic episode. Not only do we actually get more development for Blitz, but we also get more for Fizz. Finally, the characters have some form of growth that isn't swept under the rug by next episode. The only downside to this episode, I would say, is Stryker and how pathetic he is, considering where he used to be. But other than that, this episode was funny, engaging, and had actual development. It's a guaranteed hell of a fun for me, and let's hope we can keep this up in the next episode. Now we have episode 7, Mammon's Magnificent Musical. Now, while this episode isn't as strong as Oops, it's still surprisingly good. The story is interesting, and we get more development for not only Fizz, but also Ozzy, which was nice to see. And even Mammon, for being a very one-dimensional villain, was very fun and interesting to watch. The only downside to this episode, I would say, is that it doesn't really feel that important. Sure, they make some development and some cliffhangers, but it doesn't feel that important as a whole. Considering what the next few episodes are like, it just feels like setup with no payoff. So yeah, good episode. It's definitely going in the good tier. It's just not as good as Oops. Next up, we got episode 8, The Full Moon, and it's not good. I already made a video on this whole saga, but this episode just made me mad. The last episode was really good and new, but this one felt so reused and just forced. It's another Stolitz episode that has no idea how relationships work, not to mention, again, with the pointless side stories, with the cherubs, it all feels so lazy. And again, you need to have smart writing in order to make all these concepts work in unison. And again, Helluva Boss just doesn't have smart writing. So yeah, another bad episode. And at this point, I might as well just throw episode 9 in bad too, because it's basically the same in crapness. Apology Tour had some good parts, but again, it feels like they were trying to be way smarter than they actually are, and it just ends up being one big uncomfortable mess. They're not the worst because of a few things, but ultimately it comes across as poorly written and like a fanfic again. And for a show that of this nature, that's just something we shouldn't be doing at all. It's unacceptable. And finally, episode 10, the most recent episode. A very slow start to this episode that gets really good towards the end. It had good animation, a fun villain, and a nice arc with Millie and Blitz, and although it's definitely not the best episode, it still has a few flaws. I feel it was a good episode, so it's going into the good tier, because it's definitely an improvement, and I want them to continue to move forward and not go back. And there you have it, peeps, my completed Season 2 tier list so far. Tell me, what are your picks as well? Tell me in the comments down below. I'll be sure to look at what you guys have to say. And with that, it's been the Pink King here. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And with that, I will see you all next time.